Before we get started, you need your second species counterpoint handout. It is on Blackboard under week 3. So go ahead and get that if you don't have it already. It looks like this. And then we'll go ahead and get started. So if you take a look at this, you have 3 examples of second species counterpoint in front of you on the handout. And you will hopefully notice 2 big differences from first species. One is that we have half notes. So we get to add a new rhythm to our counterpoint. And with second species now, we get 2 half notes to every single note in the cantus. And secondly, if you take a look at the numbers between the lines, it looks like we have some new intervals as well. So let's take a look at that third example. And we've got some numbers that we haven't seen before. We get a 7th there, we get a 4th there, another 7th here. So in the context of counterpoint, we are now introducing harmonic dissonance with our second species. So the 2 critical elements of second species are we now have 2 notes against each note in the cantus, and we get the introduction of harmonic dissonance. So now let's take a look at that third example, the one that I just marked up a little bit. I'm going to play it. I want you to follow along, and I want you to focus in on those dissonances, the 7th, the 4th, and the other 7th. And, oh, we have another 4th here towards the end. And I want you to consider how we get into and out of those dissonances. So here's the line, give it a listen. Four dissonances in that line for us to consider. So let's take each one in turn. We'll move to the 7th first, since that one occurs first. And we approach it with a C above, and we leave that 7th to move to an A. So we approach it by step, and we leave by step in the same direction. Now let's take a look at the 4th in the very next measure. We approach it from that A, and we leave it to move down to the F sharp. So we approach it by step, and we leave it by step in the same direction. Now with that F sharp, we actually do change direction, and we approach the next dissonance going upward by step, and we leave it to continue moving in the same direction. And last but not least, the 4th at the very end, we approach it upward by step, and we leave it by step. So all of these dissonances are approached and left by step in the same direction. So every single one of them connects to consonances. So that is one of our new terms. You guys have learned a lot of vocabulary in the past 2 weeks, but this is another one of our new terms that is crucial to second species counterpoint, and that is the passing tone. A passing tone is a note that connects by step. So let's look at this dissonance right here, which is also a passing tone. We approach it by step, and we leave it by step in the same direction. So passing notes are connectors. We pass through them by step. In second species counterpoint, the reason we are allowed to have dissonances is that they have to satisfy 2 criteria. They have to be passing tones, and they have to occur on weak beats. So if you look at every single one of these dissonances that are highlighted in orange, They're all on the weak beat of the measure, the second beat of the measure. So second species, we get to have dissonances, but we have to treat them very specifically. They have to be passing tones and they must occur on the weak beats. Now we will go through the rest of this in class on Wednesday when I meet with you. So don't worry about the bottom of the page. And again, we're going to treat this the same way we did with first species. Go over the rules between now and Wednesday, and if you have questions about any of them, then bring them to class. There are a couple of things that I want to highlight. The main thing is that our cadences are just a little bit different in second species. So in first species, we always had a cadential formula that was 2-to-1 in one voice and 7-to-1 in the other voice. And they, of course, could be flipped and you could have the 7-1 in the top voice. But that was always our cadential formula, 7-to-1 and 2-to-1. Now, in second species, the cadences are slightly different, but there are only 2 ways a second species counterpoint exercise can cadence. And they're listed here with this second bullet point. You are going to end with either 7-to-1 or 6-7-1. So that means your contus is always going to be going 2-to-1 at the end. So you're only responsible for either 7-1 or 6-7-1. Your last measure will always be a whole note. So if you notice in all of these examples, the last measure is always a whole note. However, the second to last measure, we have a little bit of variation. So in the first 2 examples, the second to last measure consists of half notes that are on scale degrees 6 and 7. So there is our 6, 7, and 1. And then here in minor, 6, 7, 1. But in this last example, we actually stay on scale degree 7 here for a whole note. So that is composer's choice. A lot will depend on kind of where your counterpoint is when you get to that third to last measure. You've got to figure out what makes more sense for your counterpoint. Does it make more sense for you to have 2 half notes in the second to last measure, or does it make sense for you to stay on scale degree 7 for the entire whole note in that second to last measure? It is completely up to you, but it has to be one of those 2 options. And the other really important thing is that in minor, you have to raise 6 and 7 at the cadence. When we dealt with first species counterpoint, we said always raise scale degree 7 at the cadence, raise scale degree 6 if it's right before it. It's always going to be there now. So you have to remember to raise scale degree 6 and scale degree 7 in the cadence for your second species in minor. Now let's take a look at the worksheet that is due at class time on Wednesday. This is one of your hard copy assignments. So I want to go over it with you really quickly. So you're going to do a little bit of error detection. So what I'd like you to do is the same thing we did with the error detection handout for first species. Find the errors and just tell me what they are. So you don't have to write me a book, but give me a sentence. Just tell me parallel fifths or parallel octaves or dissonance on a strong beat, whatever it is. But find the errors in Herb's composition. And then here are your cadences. So I'm going to have you actually create the 4 different cadential options, 2 in minor and 2 in major for second species. And then last but not least, you are going to try your hand at composing a little second species line. Don't get like super worked up if this is, you know, it might take you a little bit of time, and that's fine. We have all class on Wednesday to workshop this before I kind of send you on our 2C to do some. So the big thing that I want you to focus on is I want you to circle all of your perfect intervals, just like we've been doing. That will help you hopefully catch any parallels or hiddens. And then put triangles around your dissonances. Again, that will help you make sure that when you see those dissonances, they are, like the orange ones, on weak beats and they are passing tones. So submit that by class time on Wednesday and I will answer all of your questions. If you come up with questions while you're doing the homework, jot them down and we will go over them in class on Wednesday, and we'll introduce you to your last species for our counterpoint unit. All right, guys, I'll see you in a few days.